headlines about unrest in the Middle East have prompted military families to think again about deployments. But for many full-time military families, deployments are part of everyday life. As Shannon Slatton explains, a first-grade class in Golden Valley got a front row seat to a special homecoming.
When it comes to learning how to read, first graders learn some of the most important lessons.
You guys make me feel like a superstar.
Shared reading time brings parents like Ryan's mom, Teresa Peterson,
So I have this super fun book. You may have heard it before.
in to help out.
It's about making friends. Who's ever been nude before?
Shared reading time teaches lessons like word recognition, fluency,
Hello, I'm new here,
and comprehension.
and I'd like to play.
But there's another lesson these first graders are about to learn.
38.
And guest reader Teresa is in on it.
I just was hoping that we could maybe figure out some way to kind of surprise them so that it would be something special for them. So to try to bring it, because it's been a long 6.5 months.
Her husband David is waiting and watching nearby, ready to surprise their son.
Very excited. Can't wait to see his reaction. It's going to be something else. I haven't seen him in almost over 6 months.
He's just back from a deployment in the Arabian Gulf.
He found someone jumping.
Ryan has no idea that as soon as his mom finishes up as the guest reader, the school will announce the next guest reader.
Who is it? Go get him. I don't know.
Here, buddy.
And that will be Ryan's dad.
Hi, buddy.
The surprise was special, but today's lesson will resonate.
It feels great because I sure missed him. You know, I missed being away from the family and the sacrifices that they made to support my career and the service.
A lesson about sacrifice and family will be what students remember after school today.
Missed you.
David Peterson serves with the 934th Airlift Wing out of Fort Snelling. The Peterson family lives in Plymouth. A Crystal man will do time after pleading guilty to several charges connected to labor trafficking. Ricardo Batres ran a construction company which employed undocumented immigrants. The criminal complaint says he made his employees work long hours, 6 days a week with no overtime, below market pay, and without required safety equipment. The complaint says when workers got injured, he told them they'd be deported if they got treatment. Batres was sentenced to 270 days in jail with 5 years probation. The city of Osseo continues to address the problems with pavers on its Central Avenue streetscape. In a unanimous vote, the city council chose a Golden Valley-based architectural firm to prepare a proposal for a renovation of the street. One problem to be addressed: pavers installed the last time the area was renovated haven't lasted as long as the city hoped. The company is expected to present their proposal to a council work session in late February. In Brooklyn Center, the 694 westbound ramp from Highway 252 will remain closed until Monday. The ramp, which is east of the DuPont Avenue Bridge, closed at about 4 this morning due to a water main break. Crews have to remove trees to make the repair, so be prepared to take a detour. Armstrong High School has something to brag about. The Minnesota Interscholastic Activities Association named Patti Weldon the Minnesota Activities Director of the Year. Weldon has been the Activities Director at Armstrong for the past 17 years and with the district for 33. She coordinates the logistics and operations of activities that range from athletics to fine arts and academic clubs. The Wayzata School District consists of 14 schools with more than 11,000 students. But the district also runs a robust community ed department. In today's School Spotlight, we take a closer look at some of the recent changes they've made. The school day at Meadow Ridge Elementary in Plymouth ends at 2:25 in the afternoon. But when the final bell rings, that doesn't mean all the kids head straight home for the day.
Right after school, which is around 2:30, they have snack and then they can go wherever they want to play. And then it's pretty much until like 6 o'clock.
These kids are part of Wayzata's after-school childcare program.
Oh, it's coming apart.
It's where staff members like Eva Crawford keep them busy with various activities until their parents can pick them up.
We kind of like to change out the games so it is more interesting, like they don't have the same thing to play with every day.
About 2,000 children in grades K through 5 are part of this program, which for years was referred to as home base.
Helping our community.
That is until Jenny Ebert took over as Wayzata's community ed director in 2018.
When I first started, it became apparent really early in my time here that there was confusion around the different names that we have for our programs. We're really good at naming everything, and people didn't necessarily know what those names meant.
To solve that problem, Ebert decided to rename all of the community ed programs and make them easier to understand. For example, instead of being called Home Base, this after-school program is now called Wayzata Kids. Ebert wanted a simple name that reminds people it's a Wayzata School District program where they work with kids.
And we braced ourselves for Home Base has been around for 20 plus years as a name. We thought people might be attached to it, might feel some sense of loss because they feel really connected to a great program. But as we sent it out and talked about the why, people embraced it right away.
Of course, Wayzata Kids is just one program that falls under the community ed umbrella. Other programs include adult classes, facility rentals, and volunteer opportunities. Ebert hopes that people will continue to embrace all the options community ed provides.
We want to be simple. We want to be easy to understand. We want to be easy to find. And we want people to understand all the really wonderful things that we have to offer.
The Park Center wrestling program has had pockets of success, but hasn't generally been strong. The Pirates are working hard to change that this season. Seeing the growth in number of wrestlers and the competitive level has been fun for the Pirates.
I went through the program like as a 7th grader, and it wasn't really a good team. You know, we had 14 members or 14 teammates, so it's really interesting to see how it grows. You know, how it went from nothing, like 14 members to 40 people now in the room. So
ever since my freshman year, we've been like steadily growing our team, and it's just been amazing seeing finally our program being full, like 40 kids coming in. It's great.
I can't take all the credit for sure. We've got a great group of kids. They've responded to our coaching. They've stepped up. They've put in a ton of extra work, and so that's why we've seen some positive results this year.
Female wrestlers make up part of that growth. Park Center has a handful of girls in the program.
It's tough, you know, when they're working with the guys, but we're hopeful that in the next few years, or maybe even sooner, that we'll see sanctioned girls wrestling, just so that it becomes a little bit more equitable and fair for them. But it's encouraging. It's fresh energy. It's like visible inspiration, you know.
The Pirates are 5-2 in dual meets and have consistently filled out a lineup, something that isn't true in many local programs. They've also beat some teams that historically they haven't been able to.
Beating Maple Grove and Rogers, you know, we never really think about beating them, but then it's finally growing our team and knowing that we can do it now, it feels great.
Park Center is still far from a top 10 caliber team, and they won't seriously challenge for a section team title. But they do have a shot at getting individuals into the state tournament for the first time in a few years.
Over the years, we haven't had a lot going to the state tournament or either, just competing for it. But right now, like I said, we put in our time. It's our time to shine, so we're just waiting for the opportunity.
Park Center's wrestlers are not satisfied, but they are happy with the growth of this team. After competing at Armstrong Thursday evening, the Pirates wrestle in the St. Croix Lutheran Tournament Saturday, weather permitting. It's another big winter for girls basketball teams in the northwest suburbs. The state rankings reflect that, with 4 teams from the area in the top 10 in the largest class. Defending champion Hopkins remains in the #1 spot in Class 4A. Wayzata has moved back into the #2 spot, and those teams meet Tuesday at Hopkins. Rosemount, Farmington, and St. Michael Albertville round out the top 5. Park Center is 7th, and Maple Grove is 9th. Using spring bobbers when trying to hook panfish is the subject of this week's CCX ice fishing tip. Terry Tuma explains.
Spring bobbers should be in everybody's arsenal fishing for ice crappies and sunfish. The reason being is that we have and deal with some extremely light biters under certain conditions of weather and fishing pressure. Many times it can be food source changes and so forth. And yes, we all know about, jigging, about vertical jigging spoons, about tungsten and so forth, but there's a format that I generally go through starting out with aggressive, neutral, negative. And then we all know about using bobbers, especially for panfish anglers, but there's a step beyond bobbers, and that's a spring bobber. A spring bobber I feel is extremely necessary for these real light bites. Now with a spring bobber, most importantly, if that bobber just flinches, you've got to set the hook. If that bobber just does move whatsoever, you have to set the hook. And then also too, I'll take my forefinger and just tick that spring bobber like this, and that's providing some real subtle movement to that spring bobber. Also, of course, you know about jigging with your handle and so forth, but what you also can do is squeeze the handle or put your forefinger on the blank right here, and that also provides subtle movement. Another thing to remember is that when you have a bite, you need to set the hook a little bit firmer because that spring is going to give somewhat, and you need to really get a good hook. So if you got a big fish on, there's nothing wrong with hooking once, twice, or 3 times.